Okay, so you start off by choosing a source image and placing it on a new layer on a new file in Illustrator. And then I also chose on a new layer to place one of Alyana Cazalet pieces, um, just as a reference point to look at for the type of stroke and maybe colour palette. So I'm going to create my new layer that I'm going to use for actually drawing on. And we're going to use the brush tool. So when we did Michael Craig Martin, we obviously used the pen tool and we used the shape tool. But the brush tool is going to be the main tool that we're exploring in response to Alyana's work. And first of all, you just need to sort of work and draw the main lines. But when you look at Alyana's approach, it's sort of accurate, but not necessarily full detail. So you'll see here, she's just got the points, like 3 points there for fingers. So we're not being too precious in things being absolutely correct. So I'm just going to quickly do that. So once you've got a sort of rough like outline, the main shapes, you can go in. So like here, for example, I'm not particularly happy with that anchor point. So you can do a little bit of editing if needed. But I wouldn't be too particular because it has got that looseness. As mentioned in class, ideally choose a source image that has that potential for movement or has an energy to it. Because that's sort of quite a lot of like this capturing a moment is part of her style. With my piece, obviously I've illustrated it and used a blue stroke. I need to change that to black, so I can do that there, or I can do it down here. And I'm just going to turn off that background layer so that you can see the main illustration. It's obviously quite a clunky stroke and line, not so much in keeping with that varied weight and sort of brokenness and quickness of Alyana. So what I'm going to do is select all of those paths, and I'm going to actually duplicate them, Control C, and then on a new layer I've duplicated them just so that I've got my original to come back to if I do some editing to this version. So I'm going to lock that layer. I might also turn off the visibility. So I'm going to reselect these, and to change my brush, you'll see here my default is the 5-point round brush and a uniform stroke, but I'm actually going to go up to my hamburger here. I'm going to open up the brush library for my artistic brushes, and you've got a good range. I'm going to actually go for my paintbrush library, and you can drag it down so you can see the full library by expanding it like this. And I'm actually going to change the stroke to the dry brush one. It's one I particularly like for this style. I'm also going to change my type of stroke to a more tapered stroke, and I might just turn the width down slightly. So you can see I've got this much gentler approach, which is more in keeping with Alyana. My next option is to turn on the visibility again, and I might want to think about some colour, sort of accent colour to draw attention to certain parts. So I'm going to lock that line layer, and underneath it I'm going to create a new layer, and still with my brush tool I'm going to pop in a stroke. But this time I might actually open up, let me just open the brush library, and I'll go into my watercolour brushes. Might be a bit of trial and error. I'm going to make it really quite fat, and I'm going to actually change the colour. Let Let's change it to one of Alyana's. Oops. Changed. Oh, it's done the fill. Don't want any fill. There. So I'm going to make it nice and fat as the blue. And I can adjust where that is, extend it. I can add anchor points or maneuver, the anchor points as feels appropriate. So then if I go back to my layers, if I just turn off the visibility of that background layer, and you can see I've then got an accent blue underneath there. So that's sort of a basic. What I would definitely encourage you to do is to screenshot this, and then you might do things like changing the color. So here I might sort of see what happens if I change it to different color versions and do some what ifs. And equally on those what ifs, I might also go back, let's lock that, and do some what ifs. The stroke is slightly thicker. Oops. Oh, I think it's that changed the actual brush as well. Oops. So what if it is thicker? What if I change the tapering and sort of just use it as an opportunity to play and explore using Illustrator further?